changes and things like that. So you have to wait for that one. I'm not sure when that's coming out yet in the UK. And then this one is in Dutch, and that is The Brotherhood of Brimstone. Another lovely cover there. There's Millie, there's Charlie, there's Gruffles. Can you see Gruffles in his Gangster School uniform? And they called that, I think it's The Brotherhood of Evil or something like that. They called that. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the translating. Publishers do that. So, Gangster School. What else do I want to say about Gangster School? I said I wanted to make it funny. You're probably aware, because I'm sure that every writer tells you this, that what you read, there are two things. You have to read, if you want to write, you have to read. You know, anything, fiction, non-fiction, just read, enjoy what you're reading, take it in, it all mixes around in your brain. See, I've forgotten again. I'm so hopeless at following my thread. Oh, you have to read. And what's the other thing I was going to say? Oh, funny. I like funny books. Yes. And I wanted to make it funny. One of my favorite ever books is by Gerald Durrell, and it's called My Family and Other Animals, and it's actually been filmed several times. And that to me is a perfect book because I love nature. I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat animals. And I love all the descriptions of nature. But on top of that, to me, that is a hilarious book. And I read that every year or two, and it still really makes me laugh, and I give it to people and it makes them laugh as well. And I wanted to try and make a book that was funny. Whether I've succeeded or not, I hope so. I think it's funny, but I suppose if I don't think it's funny, then, you know, there's not much hope for it really, is there? So that was Gangster School. It's been published so far in the UK and in Holland and in Germany and Austria and Belgium, and it's meant to be coming out in Turkey, but we'll see about that. That's a long, rather tedious story, so we won't go there. I've been talking a bit about inspiration and my inspiration for Gangster School, which is, you know, my son working in schools, wanting it to be funny. And writers find inspiration in lots of different ways and from lots of different things. And I think one of the really important things when you're a writer is to sort of be aware of what's going on around you all the time, and to, I don't know, listen to snatches of conversation, or see a painting, or see something on a beach that you think, oh, that's really weird. I wonder, you know, what's the story behind that? And I thought it might be quite interesting if I showed you some of the things that have inspired me with some of my other, I can't say they're books yet because they're not published yet, but they're manuscripts. And some of them are on submission, which means that they've been sent to publishers who are now thinking about whether they want to publish them or not. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed all the time. See, I've lost the thread again. I'm hopeless. So I'm just going to show you some of my inspiration. So one of the things that I've written is a book called The Red Tunic. And The Red Tunic is about a girl who tricks her way into fighting in the First World War. Very different to Gangster School. Not very funny, unless I've failed miserably. If it's funny, then I need to start again, because it's not meant to be funny. I've always been interested in war. I've always been interested in women who defy the society and do things that women weren't meant to do. And, you know, we're actually pretty lucky these days, because there isn't that much that we're not meant to do anymore. But if you go back 100 years to the time of the First World War, women couldn't fight, women couldn't even vote. That, you know, they were supposed to sit at home and knit socks and be obedient and things like that. So I thought, oh, now what if I thought about a girl who wasn't at all like that, who was a bit like I'd like to be if I could sort of choose my personality. What would she be like if she went to war? And I was thinking about this, and I found this. Now, this is a World War I postcard, and it's showing a German soldier. There's a little poem in there in German. And there's his, I don't know, is that his mother or his sweetheart worrying about him, and he's worrying about her. And this sort of the inference that what this postcard is suggesting is that he's fighting for her. He's worried about her. He's worried about his country. He's doing a noble thing. And that made me think about the fact that really, were there goodies and baddies in that war, the First World War? I don't know if there were. They were just people trying to look after their families, after their countries. So that, to me, was a huge inspiration when I wrote The Red Tunic. And look, it's even been written on, and the writing's so tiny. It's in German. I have absolutely no idea what it says. But that, to me, was inspiration. And I'm hoping that's going to get published probably next year, I hope. Now, the other thing which I find to be a huge source of inspiration is mudlarking. You may well be saying, what's a mudlark? I shall tell you. A mudlark in Victorian times, where's my picture, was normally a child, there you go, who usually didn't have anyone to look after him or her, because kids weren't looked after in those days. If your parents died, or they didn't want you, or they had to go away for some reason, you were left to your own devices. Okay, so they had to support themselves. And one way that some of these children supported themselves was waiting for the tide to go out. That's why he's got his trousers rolled up, wading into the water, which then was really not very nice at all. They'd be full of all kinds of really yucky things, and seeing what they could find to sell. Okay, now I'm a mudlark, I'm licensed to mudlark, but today it's a bit different, and today it's a massive pleasure, and I'm not looking for bits of coal that I can sell for, I don't know, a big bag full for half a penny or something like that. I'm looking for things that to me are treasures, and I find these are really, really evocative, and they make me want to write some stories about them. So I thought I'd show you. Am I all right for time, by the way? I do go on. Yeah, sorry everyone. I'm going to show you some of the things I found recently, and just talk a little bit about how I can imagine them being used in a story. So one of the things you find a lot, especially by the sea, which is where I am now, are marbles, all in the mud. Isn't that weird? Probably not as weird as it seems, because I've got loads of these. Hang on. Oh, how am I going to hold those up? There's too many now. There's some more, and there's some more. Lots of marbles. Because being by the sea, as I am at the moment, boats used to use these. If you think that everything was carried by boats in the old days, no trains, no planes, nothing like that, no lorries, everything went by boats. And when the cargo was in the ships, they were quite heavy. And then you unloaded your cargo. What happened then? If you're unlucky, your boat's kind of top heavy, flips over. So what do? You use ballast to weigh it down. And ballast is sort of anything portable and small that you can shove in the hold of the boat and then take out when you put your next cargo in. So marbles, believe it or not, were used as ballast in boats. So these, I think, have been in a boat. The boat's got to take on a new cargo, chuck them over the side. I wonder if these marbles have a story. How did that get in the sea? Maybe it what really belongs to, or longed to belong to, a boy or a little girl. I don't know. I think I love finding marbles. Now, what shall I show you now? How about this? Look, this came out of the Thames in London, and this is a statue of Krishna as a child, and he's holding a butterball. And I didn't know that. I just thought he was some kind of god. Krishna is a Hindu god. But I went to a school and I showed this to the people there. And one of the children there, who was a Hindu, said, I can tell you who that is. Why was he in the Thames? Look at him. He's really old. Now, often I take him to schools and he ends up starring in people's stories. And often he seems to be sort of become a really grumpy old man. And he's sitting there in the water thinking, oh, I'm so bored of this. Someone come along and rescue me. How could they dump me in the water to begin with? I think he's my favourite ever find. There you go. Could you write a story about someone like him? Couple more things, and then I'm going to do your reading because I'm probably going on. Am I going on? No? Okay, great. Now, for all you people like me where's another one? Aha. Who are interested in war. Bullets. Musket balls. Lead, really heavy. That apparently is from the First World War. Why was that left in the Thames? Did someone fire it? Did someone fall in the Thames, a soldier? And I don't know, he lost his equipment. It's been squashed, look. Was it fired at a Zeppelin that flew overhead? There are so many stories I could write about that. Maybe you could write one. So you find a lot of things like that. Oh, look at these, hang on. Now these I only found last week. You see what those are? They're teeth. They are massive teeth. Look. I don't find that at all. I find that fascinating. Now, someone said to me, I don't know, I think they're probably cow teeth, but you can see they've been in the mud for a long time. Someone told me they were bison teeth from the time when we were joined up to Europe before the Channel sort of flowed in. We were all part of the big continent of Pangaea. And bison would be sort of roaming around. Someone said to me, oh, maybe they're bison teeth. I don't know, but aren't they interesting? Look at those. What could you write a story about those? About how some creature ended up on the beach. It wasn't a beach at the time. Aha, now. Look at this. Bits of dolls, tiny bits of porcelain dolls. I haven't yet written a story about these, but I can see I'm going to write a story about a little girl who loved these. How did she come to lose them? Why were they chucked away? It doesn't have to be a sad story. A lot of my stories end up sad. I don't know why. Either mad or sad. Kind of sums me up, really. Could you write a story about how someone lost this little doll? Look at her. Be interesting. One more thing, what shall I show you? And then I shall have to move on. All right, two things. Pipes, look. The Thames in London is absolutely full of clay pipes. Not a very good one, that one. Some of them are really old. Some of them have been there since Queen Elizabeth I was on the throne in 1557, possibly, to 1603. But this is a later one. You can tell the really early ones because they're tiny, because tobacco was so expensive that they could only smoke tiny little bits of it at a time. Can we write a story about how that ended up in the Thames? I think I could write one. People just used to throw them away. The first thing, if you go mudlarking in London, that's the very first thing you'll find. Before you see anything else, you'll see loads of bits of pipe. And this really is the last thing, because I found this yesterday. Look at this, isn't this lovely? I wonder what that said. Lots and lots of bits of pottery on the beach here. It gets buried in the mud, and then the tide goes out, and you can just wait for the tide to go out. And every time the tide does go out, something new turns up, and that turned up yesterday. And it still really smells of mud, although I've washed it. But I just want to know, what did that say? ER. What did that say, I wonder? It's black and white, or it was. Is it commemorating some famous person's death? I don't know. It'd be nice to know. But all these things inspire me to write. And I think if you look around, you can find things that inspire you to write as well. Could be something completely different to what works for me. But writing is a huge joy. It's fantastic. I love it. When it goes well, I think, oh my God, I'm so lucky to be doing this. When it doesn't go well, I think this is a pain, but I can overcome this. And then when you do overcome it and you read back what you've written and you realize that it's not half as bad as you thought it was, it's a really great feeling. What else do I want to tell you? I want to do a reading. Do you want to know about my favorite books or things, or am I running out of time? All right, we do favorite books. I've got no idea what the time is. I just know I go on. Favorite children's books. I've mentioned My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell, which I still think is the funniest book I've ever read. I love Frances Hardinge. Now, Frances Hardinge is possibly a bit too mature for a lot of you at the moment, because her work is quite sinister and quite surreal, and there's always a sort of a really dark strain going through it, and it's sort of, she imagines worlds that you just that they're just unique. I think she is a fantastic writer, and she to me is a huge inspiration. And also, I suppose, if I'm honest, she makes me feel a bit depressed because I think she's so good. Why do I bother? I can't write like that. But we all have our own styles. We all write in a way that's natural to us. And I'm never going to be a Frances Hardinge, so I'll be a Kate Wiseman. And you can be your own writer, and everyone, we all write in a way that's just, natural to us. No point trying to write like someone else. But when you're a bit older, do read Frances Hardinge if you like things that are dark and sinister and bit surreal. The other funny book that I thought was wonderful was Time Travelling with a Hamster, Ross Welford, which is not only funny, it's very sad. And it has a hamster in it called Alan Shearer, which I think is the best name for a hamster ever. So those are probably some of my favourite children's books. Favourite books for grown-ups? Oh my goodness, where do you start? When I was a teenager, many, many years ago, I read a book of ghost stories by M.R. James, and they are absolutely terrifying in a very kind of scholarly way. And they are the best. I love ghost stories, but these are the best, creepiest ghost stories I've ever read. And I can remember reading one where, and I even remember which one it was, I was reading it in the bath and I was so scared. I was too scared to get out of the bath. So I sat there and the water got cold. And in the end, I thought I'm going to get pneumonia if I don't get out of this bath. But I thought if I got out, someone was going to sort of grab my leg or something like that. So I love creepy stories like that. I do try and write ghost stories. I've written one that I think's not too bad, but I don't know. Compared to M.R. James, they're not scary enough. I love Jane Austen. Now, a lot of you will find that when you're a bit older, when you do your GCSEs, you may end up studying Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice. Ooh, wonderful. Mr. Darcy. Wonderful, wonderful book. But I love all Jane Austen. She to me is such a clean, witty, slightly sort of waspish writer. I just love the world she creates. And again, this fact that women have to get married. That's it. That's your choice. Marry or not, and if you don't marry, you're going to have a fairly miserable life. And I love that idea. I'm very glad it's not like that anymore, but I love the way she explores that. What's the other thing I put here? Oh yes, I've made some notes, you see, because I knew I'd sort of go off in about a million different directions at once. Birdsong. I've mentioned I like World War One. I've written a book about World War One and about a girl called Nina who fights, gets to the front, pretends she's a man and she fights. Birdsong, I think, is the best book about fighting in the First World War that I've ever read. Again, not for you at the moment, but when you're older, if you like books about war, it's just amazing. It imagines the unimaginable. I used to give it to lots of people as presents, but I used to make men cry, and I thought in the end it wasn't very kind, really. Give them that for a present. So anyway, I think I've probably gone on enough. Have I got time to read a chapter? Yeah. Now, the trouble is I've chucked things all over the place. Aha, here we go. Now, I thought I'd read you the first chapter of Gruffles and the Killer Sheep. Okay, this is Gangster School 3. Couple of things you need to know, okay? Millie and Charlie, my protagonists, I'm sure you know that word, the sort of main people, my heroes, don't want to be criminals. They really don't want to be criminals. They're what I call dependables. They're secret dependables, which means that they're honest, just like you and me and everyone, everyone that watching this, we're all honest. But they get sent to gangster school, to blackguards, because that's what their mum and dad want them to do, because their mum and dad are criminals, from long established criminal families. So they stay at blackguards by sort of being quite canny and being quite clever and sort of appearing to fall in with what blackguards wants to teach you, but really they're doing their own thing and they are sticking to what they believe in. And that's really the kind of message of Gangster School, is to stick to what you believe in and don't do what everyone else does just because everyone else does it, because that's a complete waste of time, to be honest. So they are at Gangster School and they are being sent to CrimiCon, which is the annual convention for promising young criminals. And CrimiCon this year is being set at the premises of Blaggard's arch rivals, and they are called Crumley's School for Career Criminals. And they are a right nasty lot at Crumley's. So this starts on the minibus and they're on their way to Crumley's. Okay, this is chapter 1. I'll try and do it so you can see me. Or you might prefer to see the book. We're all going to die. The statement ended in a high-pitched squeal. Edgar Borgia, Blaggard's teacher of fabrication, was wrestling with the wheel of the school minibus. It was swerving down a country road, as out of control as a vampire in a butcher's shop, scattering a flock of sheep that had wandered into its path. Borgia was sweating even more than usual, which seemed to be making it hard for him to get a hold of the wheel. Get a grip on this handkerchief, Jane Vipond, Borgia's bad-tempered girlfriend and the teacher of defiance and discourtesy, snapped at him. She pulled a wisp of lace from the sleeve of her stripy frock coat, and shoved it at Borgia. Wipe your sweaty hands, you idiot. Then you'll be able to keep control of the wheel. Miss Vipond was never nice to anyone, not even when she had been spotted skipping hand in hand through Blaggard's woods with the person she was having a go at. Not even when they might all be about to die. I can't let go of the wheel to take it, Borgia groaned. That didn't sound like a groan. I can't let go of the wheel to take it, Borgia groaned. We'll just die all the sooner. This minibus is possessed. As he spoke, the bus veered onto the bumpy grass. He gave a mighty heave on the wheel and returned the vehicle to the road. Behind him, Millie Delane picked herself up from the floor and turned to her best friend, Charlie Partridge. Anything you can do, she gasped. I don't believe in demonic possession, not even of school minibuses. Charlie was a genius with any kind of electronic device or vehicle. His skills had pulled them out of some really tricky situations in the past few months, since they'd met on their very first day at Blaggard School for Tomorrow's Tyrants. If anyone could sort out this problem, it was Charlie. Charlie pushed his mop of overgrown hair out of his eyes and frowned. Something's controlling the minibus, something external. If I could get into the front, maybe I could. He scrambled to his feet and began levering his long body over the seat in front of him. At the same time, the minibus suddenly swerved to the right, sending him flying back again. A moan behind her made Millie glance backwards. The 3 Blaggardian house captains, Jet Mannington, Jezebel Jackson, named after one of my cats, by the way, and Seth Daggersby, had gone various shades of green. Jet Mannington was the greenest of all. He'd clamped a hand over his mouth and was heaving like a cat. with a fur ball. "Open your window! Puke out there!" Jezebel Jackson shrieked, whipping her foxy hair out of his line of fire. On her other side, Seth Daggersby closed his eyes and looked as if he was trying to sleep his way out of danger. Jet pulled the window open to stick his head out, a microsecond after he'd barfed up his breakfast. The rush of wind through the window carried the indescribable chunk straight past Jezebel Jackson before splattering onto Seth Daggersby's black and white frock coat. That's their uniform. He opened one eye and wrinkled his nose. Like that. "I must say that irrespective of the danger we're in, it's a relief to have some air. There's been an appalling odour back here since we set off." This was William Proctor, a budding evil genius who had an obsession with Sir Thomas Blaggard, the school's founder. He was rumoured to read dictionaries for fun. He was sitting at the very back. Next to him, the school's science whiz, Tessa Brindle, known to everyone as Tess Tube, sorry, terrible pun, leaned towards the open window and gasped for air. The stench was making her eyes water. Ahead of them loomed a towering hill, topped by a creepy-looking building. The minibus seemed to be picking up even more speed. "We'll smack straight into that hill," Borgia squealed. Not a very brave man, Borgia. No, you won't. Millie was surprised that her voice sounded so calm. "We won't get as far as that. There's a big moat in front of it. We're heading straight for that." Borgia screamed again, long and high. He lifted his hands away from the steering wheel to hide his eyes from the oncoming crash, an act that should have made the minibus veer off the road, but it didn't. It stayed on its perilous course. It was as if the bus had developed a mind of its own and was determined to plunge into the moat that was looming ever closer. Charlie was back on his feet. Once again, he tried to clamber over the seat in front of him. Perhaps 20 metres ahead, the moat was waiting for them. It was filled with spiky reeds and oily black water. "Too late," Millie said, dry-mouthed. "We're out of time." Da, da, da. Yeah. What will happen? They'll get out of it, I can tell. So I think I finally stopped gassing and wittering on about things that I find madly interesting. And I hope there are some questions that you can ask me. And I hope I know the answers, otherwise I'll have to make something up.
You will know the answers. Thank you so much for that. So we've got some questions that have come in. First of all, Mrs. Burkhart and Year 5 at Woodland School say hello.
Hello, Mrs. Burkhart.
So I will start off with one of their questions. They say, when you find something when you're mudlarking, do you always do some research about its history?
Oh, what a good question. If it's something that I think deserves research, yes. A lot of the stuff I leave where it is because there is so much of it in the Thames. I couldn't possibly take everything home. I used to take everything home and I'd come home with sort of buckets full of stuff. But if there's something that I'd like to know more about, I can show you. Hang on, Year 5, I can show you an example of this. Then I do research it. And I happen to have a friend who was on TV on a series called Mud Gods, and his name is Steve Brooker. And he knows everything about mudlarking. And I found this thing. There it is. See, it's got initials on the end. WB. And I thought, no idea what that is. And because I had no idea what it is, I didn't really know how to research it. So I looked up things like, I thought maybe it's the handle of a knife. I looked up knife handles. No, nothing similar. I thought maybe it was a light pull. Yeah, didn't seem to be that either. So in the end, I sent a photo of it to Steve Brooker and said, "What's this?" And he said, "Oh, Kate, you silly woman, that's an 18th century wig curler. It's made of clay." Yeah, like I'm meant to know about 18th century. Yeah, who knows about wig curler? Well, apart from Steve Brooker. And what they used to do, it's made of clay, used to heat them in the oven. And then your hairdresser would come to your house on his horse and he'd, like that.
Oh, my goodness.
and then your wig, because they all wore wigs then, if they could afford it, because their hair was in such disgusting condition, a bit like mine at the moment, because I haven't had a haircut for 5 months. Then your wig would be all curled, and it would stay that way for a while, and then they would call him back again, and they'd do the same thing. Now, WB, Steve Brooker informs me, was the most prolific, the most constantly found 18th century producer of wig curlers, but no one knows what WB stands for. There's also, you can take your finds to the Museum of London if there's anything you think, well, this is pretty interesting, I'd like to know what this is, and they will help you identify it. I will show you this one last thing, because I forgot to show you this. This is something I need to take to the Museum of London next time I get there, and sadly I haven't been to London for a while. But this is the top of a ring. Oh. And Steve Brooker again, the oracle, says to me that it might be Roman. Cool. Because of course the Thames has been used as a rubbish tip for 2,000 years. So I'm going to take that, because that's kind of research that is a bit beyond me. I'm going to take that to the Museum of London and say, what can you tell me about that? But the research is half the fun of mudlarking. You've got to try it. And you get filthy. How else can you get filthy and have fun and learn at the same time? It's just a perfect hobby.
Sounds great.
It is.
So, Adrian has asked, well, it said something about mudlarking, but you kind of answered already. He says, does your love of mudlarking inspire any writing? So you've already spoken about that. But he also says, in fact, he says your characters are really funny with funny names. Are they based on real?
Oh dear. It's a good job she's not listening. If you've read any of my books, you may have come across Pecunia Badpenny. There's her in silhouette. Let me just say that my best friend, who I have wonderful brainstorming sessions with, is called Penny. And I won't say that they are physically similar, because I'd like Penny to remain my best friend, and Pecunia Badpenny is not the most beautiful of women, but she certainly, Pecunia Badpenny is a very strong character, and my friend Penny is a very strong character. And I think sort of Pecunia is a very much exaggerated version of Penny. Millie is kind of what I'd like to have been at that age. She's so full of confidence. She's probably overconfident, really. There's nothing she thinks she can't do. She'll find a way around everything. She's unafraid, she just rolls up her sleeves. And Harry, so I was going to call him Harry. Charlie, based on my boy. Good job he's in Japan and not listening to this, because he'd probably never speak to me again. But Harry, like Charlie, such an intelligent boy, not that confident, but when he gets going, he can do anything, and that's like my boy. So yes, often. And there's one other baddie as well, which I won't say. Someone really annoyed me at school I worked in, and they're in as one of the other baddies.
The perils of knowing a writer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Behave or you end up in your book. Laura would like to know, if you could have any gangster skill, what would it be?
Oh, I say, disguise. I'd love that. Blaggard has got a wonderful disguise department, and it's got everything in it. It comes up in the second Gangster School book. And you can dress as a sort of a 6-foot baby or a daffodil or anything you like. And there are a couple of people in this book who change really, really quickly from one disguise to another. It's sort of like that, and they've changed. And I would love to have that skill, because then I could sort of go anywhere and be, infiltrate into anything. I could go to the Buckingham Palace and see what the Queen was up to and pretend I was a footman or anything at all. I think that'd be a great thing to do. So yes, if I could have any gangster school, really good question. I would be a really brilliant disguiser.
Excellent. Another question from Woodlands. So I'm just reading it off of a different screen, which is why I'm not looking at you. Do you have lots of ideas stacking up in your head for stories and books? How do you decide what ideas will make a good story or are good enough to use in your books?
Oh, what a good question. Ah, yes, I can see you're penetrating my brain there, aren't you? I do have an awful lot of stories, and like most writers, and I know Emma Carroll showed you some of her notebooks. I have notebooks and I put stuff in there, and sometimes I come back to them and sometimes I forget them and look through them and think, oh yeah, that could have been a good story, maybe I'll try and write that. If I've got something that really is niggling away at me, I think I really want to write that, I'll have a go at writing a couple of chapters and see if I think there's something in it, if I can carry it further, and if that goes well, then off it goes. But I think one of the things I was talking earlier about coming to writing late, is that I've got so many ideas. I should have been writing about 20 years ago if I'd been, less scared of failure. So I've got all those ideas. I've got 50 years worth of ideas that I've got to get out of my head. So yeah, thank you. Good question. And excellent.
I've got, hang on a minute, where is it? What did I do with it? It was about Gruffles. Is Gruffles based on a real dog?
Gruffles.
Emma got asked questions about dogs as well last week.
I know. So, oh yeah, she brought her dog, didn't she?
I know.
They were lovely. They were such good.
They were lovely.
Gruffles is the dog that Harry wanted to have. Even the name, he said, "Oh, if only I could have a dog, I'll call him Gruffles." But we had
a good name.
It's a good name, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's a kind of a Mongol name, isn't it? It's a sort of a scruffy, scruffy name. It's not like Montmorency of Montmorency or something like that. It's a scruffy dog name. But we had, and we still have, cats. Well, we have two left. One of our cats sadly has gone to the cat house in the sky. Maisie, she was lovely. She was the only cat I knew who'd fall over when she was, cats sort of lift one leg and sort of clean their bits, and every time she did that she'd fall over on her back. Kind of hopeless. In fact, there's a character there's a character in Gangster School called Maisie, isn't there? So yeah, all my pets find their way. So Gruffles, yes, is the dog that my son Harry wanted to have, but our cat's lived too long and now he's in Japan teaching, and maybe when he comes back we'll get him a Gruffles.
You never know.
You never know.
This question is from me, but it is stolen because I've heard it before. I just thought it was a really good question, but it is putting you on the spot a bit. If you could have your stories kind of serialized into like a TV series or put into a film.
Oh no.
What kind of? No, that would be so cool. They'd make a brilliant mini-series, I think. Oh, so good. Have you got kind of a vision of what that might look like? Would you want to have a lot of input in that, or would you be quite happy to give it a free rein? What do you think?
I think it'd be very hard to let go and to see someone else's vision, someone else taking over and then sort of imposing their vision on it, because my vision of Blaggards is quite strong. And for instance, in Germany, in Holland, they think Blaggards looks like this. I don't think Blaggards looks like that, although I love these covers. I think Blaggards looks like that. Yeah. So I think it'd be very hard to let go. But if I did have a say, I think there should be lots of sort of bright colours and fun music, and probably sort of slightly surreal dialogue, and it would be a really good chance for actors to sort of overact, which I think would be great fun. Not all of them, if everyone's overacting, then overacting would become the norm, wouldn't it? And no one would notice. But I think especially some of the teachers, and Pecunia Badpenny and Miss Martinet, the headmistress, who again is kind of, I aspire to be Miss Martinet. Everyone's terrified of her. And she's very graceful, and God, I'd love to be like that. I thought you were going to ask me, and I'm glad you didn't, who would play the parts. Because
I know. I think that's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah. That's too hard. But yeah, God, I'd love it to be televised. I think that would be amazing, and I think I think the message of the books is very positive. It's not sort of go and be a criminal. It's the opposite, really. It's don't be a criminal, and you know, stick to your guns.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Never know. You never know. I think I've run out of questions.
Okay.
I think. So I think we can leave you in peace now, Kate.
Well, thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much for taking your time out. And I think there is nothing better than meeting a real life author, for people to see that you're just a person, and that, you know, if you work hard and you're passionate about something, then you can achieve it. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And if I can do it, so can you. So don't wait till you're 50.
There you go. Go for it.
Carpe the DM and all that.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. And thank you for everyone tuning in.
Happy writing, everyone.
Yeah. Whenever I do this bit, Kate, it always ends up a bit abruptly. So if I just disappear, it's not because I don't love you. It's because the technology and my brain are not that good. So,
No. Right.
but thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. Hope to see you again.
Yes. Take care. Bye.